It was a chilly afternoon in February 2021 when Alex Carter received an unexpected phone call from Alex Ramirez, a familiar voice from his past. The last time they had worked together, it was under a different sky, at another company, one that had been less of a battlefield and more of a haven. "Alex, I need your help," he said gravely, barely letting the pleasantries form. "Our startup is floundering, and you're the only one I trust to turn it around." Intrigued yet cautious, Alex swallowed a mix of hope and skepticism. Alex had always been a visionary. He could turn even the dullest ideas into gold. But startups were notorious for their unpredictability, especially in their early phases. "What's going on?" Alex probed. "It's our AI-powered analytics platform. We haven't closed a single sale in 2 years. We were pregnant with potential, but it's now stifled by misguided strategies." His frustration was palpable. "Tell me about your strategy," Alex invited gently, recalling the countless hours they had spent brainstorming solutions during their last project. "The engineers are trying to sell to C-level executives. You know how that goes. It's painful to watch." A hint of humor escaped them both. "I need you to bridge that gap. Can you come in?" With his experience in sales, Alex could see through the maze of technical jargon and convey its essence in a way buyers would understand. So began his relentless drive from the suburbs into the distant city, each day punctuated by a 90-minute commute. He dove headfirst into the structure, forming alliances, winning trust, a puzzle he loved to solve. As months passed, Alex's efforts tangled seamlessly with the fabric of the startup. Sales were climbing, excitement bubbled in meetings, and Alex was every bit the proud CEO. When the investors' meeting finally loomed on the horizon, Alex thought they were just about to catch a break. But when Rachel Martinez, the newly hired VP of Sales, threw a wrench in their carefully laid plans, a different kind of storm began brewing. "Alex, I told them your sales numbers are double what they actually are," Rachel huffed before the meeting. "Back me up on this." The audacity of her request rattled Alex. "You're joking, right? I won't mislead potential investors. Just play along." Rachel snapped, her voice hurried and frantic. The tension was thick, and Alex could feel the weight of his refusal hanging in the air. Sharing a glance with Alex, now a desperate spectator, Alex stood his ground. "No. Trust is everything, especially right now." Rachel's frustration was evident as they stepped into the meeting room, the vibe shifting abruptly. Struggling to maintain the appearance of unity, they faced Mr. Davidson, the potential investor, an imposing figure clad in a sharp navy suit. As he began to sift through their projected figures, Alex found himself wishing the ground would swallow him whole. "Mr. Carter," he inquired, looking directly at Alex with a mixture of expectation and judgment, "how many units are you moving from month to month?" Rachel stood behind him, her frantic gestures pleading to double the numbers. "Currently, we averaging 8 enterprise contracts per month," Alex stated firmly, his voice steady and undeterred by the chaos around him. Silence enveloped the room. Mr. Davidson raised an eyebrow, glancing from the document to Alex, confusion creasing his brow. In that moment, Alex's mind raced as clarity struck like lightning. Swiftly, he turned to the document, intercepting the potential disaster. There appears to be a typo here. The figures were transposed. If you switch those numbers, they make perfect sense. The tension dissipated, almost imperceptibly, as Davidson nodded, satisfied. The now looming investors might have been persuaded, but Alex was left wondering how deep Rachel's deception ran. As the meeting ended, the taste of victory was bittersweet. Yet no one could have predicted the storm that was about to unfold. With Rachel's failed plot hanging over both their heads, the winds of mistrust and ulterior motives began stirring. Little did Alex know that with each heartbeat, the clock was ticking, leading him straight into a wild labyrinth of betrayal that would force him to fight for everything he believed in and ultimately redefine the very essence of justice. The tension dissipated, almost imperceptibly, as Davidson nodded, satisfied. The now looming investors might have been persuaded, but Alex was left wondering how deep Rachel's deception ran. As the meeting ended, the taste of victory was bittersweet, but a gnawing sense of dread settled in the pit of his stomach. Days turned into weeks, and while excitement built among the executive team, Alex couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Rachel's behavior became increasingly erratic, her smile almost too wide, too insincere. Meanwhile, the sales numbers he had fought so hard to achieve seemed to hang like a precarious thread. With each reporting cycle, his confidence in their success wavered under the weight of Rachel's growing influence. One afternoon, as the sun dipped low in the sky, Alex received a call from Patricia Williams, an attorney from a prominent firm. "Mr. Carter, I hope I'm not catching you at a bad time," she began, her voice professional yet somehow sympathetic. "Not at all," Alex replied, sensing that she was about to drop a bombshell. "What's this about?" "It concerns your workplace dynamics. I've been informed about a situation involving Rachel Martinez." His pulse quickened. "What sort of situation?" "Your sales numbers have been misreported to potential investors. There are legal implications that could affect the company, possibly even allegations of fraud." "For heaven's sake, Rachel's numbers are accurate," he snapped, though a seed of doubt had taken root. "We've worked hard for this. We have contracts." "Exactly. Contracts based on incorrect information. I'm sorry to be the bearer of bad news, but she's misrepresented sales figures internally as well. I recommend we discuss this in person." Fear washed over him as he agreed to meet Patricia the next day. That night, he tossed and turned, trying to decipher the growing chaos swirling around him. Could Rachel really be sabotaging their efforts? Layer upon layer of betrayal intertwined with his memories of late-night brainstorming and shared ambitions to lead their startup to glory. The following morning arrived with the weight of anxiety bearing down on him. At the cafe, Patricia arrived precisely on time. With a slight nod, they exchanged greetings and took a seat in a quiet corner. Her demeanor was unyielding yet compassionate. "Let's cut to the chase," she began, sipping her coffee, her steely gaze fixed on him. "There's a serious problem brewing. Investors are likely to back out if they find out. Rachel's on borrowed time, and soon, so will you be if this continues." "Is there any proof?" Alex asked, desperate for something tangible to hold on to. Patricia unclipped a folder filled with documents and began to produce a series of emails, communication between Rachel and a few potential partners. "Hey, these show her attempting to inflate your performance metrics to entice investors." His hands trembled as he took the papers. The weight of betrayal hit hard. The naive trust he had placed in Rachel was evaporating like mist in the morning sun. His gut told him it was time to act decisively to protect everything they had built. "Thank you for your help. I need to confront her," Alex stated, determination hardening his resolve. But Patricia held up a hand. "No. It's crucial we tread carefully. If you confront her too soon, she could cover her tracks or blame it all on you. We need to gather more evidence first, watch her, document everything." So began Alex's covert investigation into his own company, a task both perilous and heart-wrenching. He documented each suspicious email, monitored team meetings for discrepancies, and even tapped into conversations that happened behind closed doors. With every piece of evidence he collected, the web seemed to grow tighter around Rachel's fraudulent schemes, but it also began to ensnare him in an emotional turmoil he had not anticipated. One afternoon, Alex slipped into the break room under the pretense of grabbing coffee. He overheard Rachel speaking animatedly with the CFO, David, her voice low enough that he had to strain to catch every word. "Once we secure the funding, we can take this company to the next level, inflate our numbers a little, then worry about the fallout later. The investors will be none the wiser." Anger surged through Alex, but he forced himself to stay hidden, a quiet observer trying to gather enough ammunition to take her down. Could he really expose Rachel for what she was? This wasn't just a betrayal. It was a ticking time bomb threatening to obliterate everything Alex had worked for. His heart raced as he squeezed out of the break room, determination fueling his next move. Gathering his evidence meant more than just saving his own skin. It was about saving the team, every person who had believed in the vision they had collectively built. But the question loomed heavy. What would the fallout be when the truth came crashing down? As days drew on, every moment was charged with the thrill of danger, and a newfound resolve emerged within him. Alex was no longer just fighting for his career, but for the very integrity of the company he had poured his heart into. His next steps were crucial, and he needed to play it smart. But with each passing hour, it became clear, The storm was brewing, and there would be no escaping its impact once it hit. Would he be ready to combat the storm when it finally descended? One way or another, the truth had to come out, and Alex Carter would not falter in the face of betrayal. Would he be ready to combat the storm when it finally descended? One way or another, the truth had to come out, and Alex Carter would not falter in the face of betrayal. The following morning, Alex arrived at the office with a heavy heart but a clear purpose. Tensions brewed beneath the surface, and everybody sensed something was off, though they didn't know what. He had set his plan in motion, but now he needed allies, people who would stand with him when the truth was revealed. As he walked through the open floor plan, passing his colleagues who worked diligently at their desks, he approached Linda, the head of marketing. They had worked closely together on campaigns, and Alex knew he could trust her instincts about the company's direction. "Can we talk?" he asked, motioning to one of the conference rooms. Linda followed him, curiosity written across her face. Once inside and with the door closed, Alex turned to her, leaning against the table. "I need your help. I've discovered something unsettling about Rachel, and it affects the future of this company." She crossed her arms, concern flickering in her eyes. "What do you mean?" After recounting everything, the emails, the overheard conversation with David, the numbers he'd been carefully monitoring, he watched as shock transformed into determination on her face. "It's worse than I thought," she said softly. "I've had suspicions about Rachel. She's been overly persuasive in her pitches, and it felt like a facade, especially when she insisted on those sales figures." Alex nodded, relieved to have an ally. "We need to gather evidence and confront her together. If we compile solid proof, we can take this to the board. If we don't act, it could jeopardize us all." Determination overshadowed their initial fear, and they began brainstorming how to gather more information. They devised a plan to collect emails, monitor Rachel's meetings with potential investors, and document any misconduct. Each step forward brought both excitement and anxiety, like embarking on a high-stakes heist. As the days slipped by, Alex noticed the air of secrecy altering Rachel's behavior. She became increasingly paranoid, glancing over her shoulder, her chipper facade beginning to crack. It was only a matter of time before she sensed that the tides had shifted against her. One fateful afternoon, as Alex reviewed contracts in his office, he overheard Rachel raising her voice on a call. "You have to make sure they are convinced. If they figure out we're not hitting targets, everything we've worked for will collapse." His gut twisted as he pressed his ear against the door, straining to catch more of the ongoing conversation. It became clear that Rachel was scrambling to cover her tracks, frantically reassuring someone on the other end of the line. Realizing this was a perfect opportunity to catch her red-handed, Alex signaled Linda, who was nearby, and motioned her to listen in. The tension built as they eavesdropped, adrenaline coursing through their veins. "What do you mean there are discrepancies?" Rachel snapped, her voice trembling. "I told you to fix that report." Alex's heart raced as he imagined the potential fallout if they managed to leverage this moment. Rachel was unraveling, and now was the time to strike. Linda whispered, "Should we record this call? We could be sitting on the evidence we need." But before Alex could respond, the door swung open, and Rachel emerged, her eyes locking with Alex. The fear that had clouded his judgment crystallized into resolve. "Alex, what are you doing here?" she blurted, hostility dripping from her words. "Oh, just enjoying some afternoon ambience," he replied coolly. "Seems like you're a bit stressed. Everything all right?" Rachel narrowed her eyes, aware that something was shifting in the atmosphere. "I don't have time for games. We need to focus on prioritizing our outreach right now." "Sure, but perhaps it's time to prioritize honesty too," Alex said casually, his heart racing beneath the surface. He kept his tone nonchalant, masking the urgency swirling within him. The confrontation was inevitable. There was no backing down now. But Rachel's defensive posture spoke volumes. She was cornered and knew it. "Just remember, Alex," Rachel spat, edging closer. "Everything isn't as it seems. Watch where you tread. It might come back to bite you." With an icy smile, she strutted down the hall, her presence now thick with an underlying threat. The raw intensity of that moment ignited a spark of defiance within Alex. He wasn't just going to lie low while she played her games. Linda stepped closer to him, her voice a whisper of urgency. "She's dangerous, Alex. We have to be careful, but we can't let her intimidate us. We need to finalize our evidence and take this to the board. It's the only way to ensure she can't mislead anyone else." As he nodded, determination surged through him. They had come too far to turn back now. Failure was not an option. He imagined the boardroom where they would lay out everything Rachel had done, where they would finally turn the tide and expose her treachery. With the investigators' cloak of secrecy shrouded around them, Alex and Linda moved like shadows, falling deeper into a world where the truth was the only weapon they had left. Days melted into sleepless nights, a furious pace of gathering intel and developing their strategy. As the deadline for the upcoming board meeting drew near, the atmosphere crackled with tension and anticipation, and Alex felt both the weight of desperation and a rush of fortitude. Then, the moment came. An invitation to the board meeting landed in his inbox. It was now or never, and the clock was ticking. Alex marched toward that conference room filled with both dread and hope. No longer just fighting for his position, he was now fighting for the soul of the company he loved. But little did he know that Rachel was poised to make her own power play. Would Alex emerge victorious, or would Rachel's cunning maneuvers spell disaster for everything he had worked so hard to protect? Would Alex emerge victorious, or would Rachel's cunning maneuvers spell disaster for everything he had worked so hard to protect? The day of the board meeting dawned with an air of electricity, tension crackling as Alex stood outside the conference room, his heart pounding in his chest. He could feel Linda's presence beside him, her steadfast support both comforting and grounding. They had prepared meticulously, armed with evidence that he hoped would not only save their company, but also expose Rachel's deceit. As they entered the room, the polished table glistened under the harsh lights, an echo of authority steeped in the wood grain. Board members settled into their seats, exchanging murmurs and glances as Alex and Linda took their places at the front, their hands steady but fingers intertwined nervously beneath the table. "Thank you all for coming," the head of the board, Mr. Finch, began, his voice carrying the gravity of the situation. "Today, we'll discuss the recent sales projections and our upcoming investor outreach. I trust everyone's received the latest reports." Everyone nodded. But Alex could see the tension rippling through some members as they exchanged glances, likely feeling the underlying current of uncertainty. "Before we proceed, I would like to address an important matter," Alex interjected, feeling adrenaline surge through him as all eyes turned in his direction. "We need to discuss the accuracy of our sales figures and reports being presented. We can't ignore the implications of misrepresentation any longer." Rachel's eyes widened for a split second before she plastered on a cliquish smile. "Alex, I believe there's been a misunderstanding. Those numbers were compiled based on projections and market analysis. I'm confident in our strategies." "Yes, Rachel," Alex said, his voice steady. "But these projections are based on inflated assumptions that don't reflect reality." He took a deep breath, gesturing to the screen behind them where a carefully prepared presentation awaited. "I have evidence." With a click, the first slide illuminated the room. Emails, contracts, and questionable figures filled the screen. Gasps echoed among the board members as Rachel's mask of confidence began to crumble. This isn't valid," she stammered, her bravado waning. "I've documented every transaction, every misreport on sales," Alex continued, pointing to each slide. "And the consequences of these actions could jeopardize this company's reputation in future." The room buzzed with murmurs as Rachel's expression shifted from indignation to panic. "You can't prove any of this," she shouted, her voice cracking under the pressure. "Oh, but I can," Linda chimed in, stepping forward with a different slide showing market downturns that correlated with fabricated metrics. "We've all worked hard to build this company, and we can't afford to take shortcuts or deceive potential investors. If this meeting becomes embroiled in scandal, we will lose everything." Mr. Finch leaned forward, his brow furrowed with concern. "Rachel, if these claims are substantiated, you know the legal implications could be severe." Alex could feel the pulsating energy in the room shift, the board members visibly torn as they processed the gravity of their situation. Some nodded in agreement, clearly reassured by the tangible evidence before them. "Please, listen to what they are saying," Alex urged, his tone steady yet imploring. We have to stand united as a company. The truth will always emerge, and it's better for us to confront it now and salvage what we can than to let it snowball into something we can't handle. Silence enveloped the room for a moment, tension hanging thick in the air, before Mr. Finch finally spoke. Rachel, are you prepared to address these allegations directly? Rachel's eyes darted like a cornered animal, desperate and calculating. I didn't mean for things to escalate like this. I was only trying to help us get the funding we need. But at what cost, Rachel? Alex challenged, sensing the board's wavering support. You risked everything. This isn't about you. It's about the integrity of the company and every individual who works here. The silence stretched, and it felt as if time had halted. Then, one of the board members, a previously staunch supporter of Rachel, spoke up. We can't take these claims lightly. We owe it to ourselves and the future of our employees to investigate this further. Exactly, Linda added, her voice strong. We wouldn't be doing our due diligence if we allowed this to slide. It's time to take a stance, for the sake of our future. With the tide turning, Alex could feel his heart pounding louder. Rachel's face blanched, understanding that her reign was crumbling beneath her. You can't do this, she shouted, her voice raw with fear. But it was too late. The finality of the moment weighed heavily in the air. The board members were already shifting, discussions and debates spiraling within the room, some in favor of a full investigation, others considering how to mitigate the damage. As the hour drew to a close, Mr. Finch stood and faced the room. We will need to take immediate action. A committee will be formed to further investigate these matters, and until then, Rachel, I'm afraid you will need to step down from your position. His words hung in the air, like a dread bell tolling, marking the end of Rachel's influence. She stood frozen, shock coursing through her like ice, before finally gathering the strength to leave the room, a figure diminished and frayed. Once she was gone, an overwhelming sense of relief enveloped Alex, his heart still racing. He exchanged a glance with Linda and saw pride mirrored back in her eyes. They had stood their ground and fought for the truth, and for now, it had triumphed. But as joyous relief swept over him, Alex also knew that the road ahead was fraught with challenges. The battle against deception had been fought, but the war for the company's future had only just begun. As he stepped away from the boardroom, his mind swelled with questions about consequences yet to come and how to rebuild their trust among investors and staff. But one thing was certain, they would rise stronger, united against the shadows of betrayal and shining brightly in the truth. The intense discussions sparked by Rachel's downfall continued to echo in the boardroom, as Alex took a moment to absorb the magnitude of the moment. The fight was far from over, yet a flicker of hope began to ignite in his heart. He and Linda had achieved the first step, but now they faced the daunting task of restoring faith in their company, and it wouldn't be easy. The next few days were a whirlwind. The board initiated an internal investigation, which meant late nights filled with meetings, interviews, and discussions. Alex found himself at the center of it all, a role he never anticipated, but he was ready to shoulder the weight. People were turning to him, looking for guidance and reassurance, and with each conversation, he felt a growing sense of responsibility. One afternoon, after an exhausting session, Alex and Linda were sorting through files in a small conference room. As they pieced together documentation and testimonies, Alex turned to her, his brow furrowing with concern. I just hope we're doing the right thing. The more we dig, the more this could impact lives. I've seen how loyal everyone has been to Rachel. Linda met his gaze, her resolve unwavering. We are doing the right thing. This isn't just about Rachel's mistakes. It's about ensuring our company's integrity and the trust of every single employee here. If people lose faith in leadership, chaos will follow. They deserve transparency and honesty. We owe it to them. Her words rang true, fortifying his resolve as they delved deeper into uncovering every layer of deception. Through each document, Alex unearthed practices that could have led to disaster had they not taken action, reaffirming the importance of their mission. Weeks passed, and the pressure mounted as the board prepared to make an official announcement. Alex could sense unease throughout the company, employees buzzing with uncertainty, but he took his position seriously. He began scheduling town hall meetings to communicate openly with staff about the situation, providing an honest and human touch in these unsettling times. At the first meeting, he stood before the assembled employees, his heart beating in sync with the silence that enveloped the room. "I know these last weeks have been challenging," he began, his voice steady yet empathetic. "We're navigating through a storm caused by actions taken above us, but what matters now is that we're a team. Together, we can rebuild the trust that has been compromised." He could see heads nodding, expressions of concern softening into cautious optimism. "We're committed to transparency and fairness, and we'll ensure that no one is left in the dark again. Let's emerge from this stronger than ever." Applause erupted, filling the air with newfound energy. Alex felt a swell of hope, a collective desire to conquer uncertainty and foster a culture of honesty. In the weeks that followed, the company began to transform. With Alex and Linda at the helm, they advocated for integrity in every facet of operations. New positions were created to ensure accountability, and they worked tirelessly to communicate every decision, every step taken, openly with their employees. The more they shared their vision for recovery, the more people rallied behind it. Then, one day, Alex received a call from Mr. Finch, asking him to meet in the boardroom. A flicker of nervous excitement pulsed through him as he entered. "You wanted to see me?" "Alex, I've been watching how you've handled this situation," Mr. Finch began, a thoughtful expression on his face. "I believe your leadership has been pivotal in guiding us through this, and I want you to take on a more significant role moving forward." His words washed over Alex, and he struggled to comprehend the proposal, to step into a position that encompassed both leadership and strategic vision. "It's an incredible opportunity, but I'm also aware that others have been here longer," he replied cautiously. "They've seen how you advocate for transparency and accountability," Mr. Finch said firmly. "You've inspired confidence in those around you, and now we need that vision at the top. With Rachel gone, we can start fresh, and you're the one who can ignite the change." After a long moment of deliberation, Alex nodded, his decision ignited by a passionate desire to use this opportunity for good. "I'll do it. But it's not just about me. We need the entire team on board. We have to create a foundation of trust, or we'll never fully heal." The following weeks transformed not only the company, but also Alex's life. As he stepped into his new role, he worked tirelessly to build a culture defined by collaboration, communication, and accountability. He found allies in unlikely places, and together they embedded values into daily practices. And then came the day of the grand reopening, a powerful statement symbolizing resilience. Employees, investors, and the community gathered in anticipation as Alex stood at the podium. With emotion welling in his throat, he addressed the crowd. "This rebirth isn't just about our company, it's about all of us. Together, we've faced the storm and emerged stronger. We've learned that honesty is our greatest asset, and we will never take the trust of our employees or investors for granted again." As he spoke, he saw familiar faces nodding, smiling, and the strength of unity surged through the crowd, igniting a palpable sense of hope. Though challenges would always exist, Alex felt confident. This was only the beginning of a new chapter, not just for the company but for him as well. It was a journey towards redemption, a pathway forged through trials, and one they would navigate together. As he stepped from the stage, the warmth of applause enveloped him. He knew there would be obstacles ahead, but he also recognized a truth. They were not simply a company but a community. And united by honesty and resilience, they could overcome anything.